Folks, give a huge round of applause for our next storyteller. Give it up for Maggie Hyde!
Hey guys, I would first like to thank Frank for having me here and apologize to Frank and Chris because this might be a moment that seems funny later, but I'm one of those kids that was in school who couldn't follow directions, and I just kind of missed the memo that it was supposed to be a story about something that's funny now. But I promise I think it's a good story if you guys will take the ride with me. But I'm not sure it qualifies as funny. So my apologies. My apologies. But it's a story that means a lot to me. So there we go. I'm sorry, Chris. I died when I was 19 years old. See, I told you it was going to go down a notch. It was 1992. I was a freshman at USC. I had my first apartment. And I had a boyfriend that was older that my parents actually liked, which was something. I mean, he was white, he was waspy, he was from a very conservative family. I was in college, you guys. You can forgive me for that, right? A couple months into our relationship, I was in a final in my film class, and all of a sudden I started itching, and I had the hives, and then I had a headache, and then I felt nauseous. And I thought it was the stress, and then I thought it was the flu, and then I thought, no, it couldn't be. And then I thought, am I pregnant? And I was. Yeah, I was. So it was 1992, and I really considered myself a feminist. I loved Gloria Steinem. I had a women's studies minor. So I thought if I ever found myself in this situation, I would have an abortion. Like, it wouldn't even have occurred to me to do anything else. And that's what my family thought too. Right before I went and saw the little peanut on the ultrasound and heard the heartbeat, and in that moment, I knew I had to have this baby. I'm pro-choice and will forever be, but that was just not the choice I could make. Everybody assumed that I would have an abortion. My boyfriend and my dad. My dad wrote me a 10-page letter about why I shouldn't do this. And it's the only letter he's ever written me. I kind of wish I still had it, you guys. And my mom cried and then tried to be supportive, but basically everyone thought I was crazy. My friends, my family, my sorority sisters at Kappa Gamma, who promptly kicked me out of the sorority, and my boyfriend, who stuck around just long enough to realize that he could not talk me into having an abortion. So, I was 19 and alone, and I was like entertaining this fantasy that I could have this baby, go on with my life, and nothing would change. Nothing was going to change. And then a day came when I realized that things had changed more than I realized, right? I was in the grocery store, I was 6 months pregnant, and a woman walked by me in the aisle, and she gasped. And then I was confused, and then I caught a glimpse of myself in the freezer door, and I saw what she saw. I looked like a 12-year-old who was pregnant. I looked like a baby having a baby, right? Yeah, you're shaking your head, yes. And in a way that was true. You know, I didn't know who I was yet. I wasn't a grown-up, but I was growing a person inside of me. Yeah, and as the days went on and it got closer and closer to having her, I got more and more terrified. And honestly, depressed and isolated. And I was watching my friends go off and travel in Europe and do fun internships and, go to parties, get drunk, hook up with guys. And I was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more isolated. Kind of like an island that no one wants to go on vacation to. I'm really glad there was no social media then. That probably would have been the end. But then finally, I was about 9 months pregnant, and I went to a routine checkup, and they realized I had really high blood pressure and said, "You're having this baby today." I was like, today? Baby. And then I found myself in the hospital getting blood pressure medication, which makes your veins feel like they're on fire, and then Pitocin to induce the labor, which is incredibly painful, which I could not take for very long. God bless all of you who can do natural forever, not me. And, you know, the nurses at St. John's here in Santa Monica have been amazing. And then the anesthesiologist came in and rolled me over to do the epidural, and the nurse saw that I had a tattoo right here. I have a dress on, so I can't show it to you guys, nor would I, because it was a really embarrassing 80s Guns N' Roses tattoo. Okay, it was the 80s, and my brain was not fully formed yet, you know? In case you're wondering, I have had that tattoo like covered over since then. But I did have this really embarrassing tattoo, and the nurse took one look at it in disgust, and she was like, an unwed teenage mother, and she has a tattoo. This is not something you want to hear right before someone's going to stab you in the spine. And, you know, the epidural, I knew it wasn't strong enough because it couldn't numb me to this woman's judgment. Yeah. After that moment, these nurses who'd been so wonderful wouldn't look at me, wouldn't bring me ice chips, were just awful because they were looking at me with so much judgment. I finally realized that how other people saw me wasn't the way I saw myself. I realized that all they saw with their judgment was, you know, someone who was irresponsible, you know, wrong. And, you know, I couldn't believe it. But you know what? I didn't have much time to think about it then. You know, I was about to have a baby. And it was time to push. And for those of you who don't have a baby, have never had a baby, that's really a relief. It's kind of like taking the best shit of your life. And I did that. And then there she was, this tiny, beautiful little girl. And she was like a miracle. She was so strong and beautiful and screaming. And I named her the name, I thought I was going to name a boy. I gave her the name Spencer. So I guess I was kind of a feminist after all. Yeah, a little bit. I held her and I smelled her head. And I was having this really beautiful moment. And then all of a sudden, everyone looked panicked. And they yanked the baby away from me. And it turns out that I had started bleeding. And I lost half the blood in my body in 10 minutes. I was dying. I died when I was 19 years old. I floated above my body, and I was looking down at myself, and all those things you think are bullshit that they tell you are actually true. I felt peace. I felt like everything was going to be okay. Because she was beautiful and she was perfect, and if I had to go, it was going to be okay, right? And then I got yanked back into my body with searing pain, and when I came to, I could hear the doctors arguing. My doctor was like, I'm not giving a 19-year-old hysterectomy. And the other doctor was like, you're taking a huge risk. Because I guess the common procedure in this case would be to do that. I mean, I had already died. And she was like, I'm just not doing it to her. And I'm forever grateful. She saved my life. She allowed me to be a mom to all of my children. She saved my fertility. And she delivered all of my other kids. So thank you, Dr. Daly. Great doctor. And, you know, boy. You guys, this is hard. Oh boy, you know, it was something. So now Spencer's grown up, and most of my kids are, and I decided to become a late in life stand-up comedian. No family is happy about that. Yeah, my kids would rather me do porn than do stand-up. And sometimes I agree with them because at least then I could pay for their therapy. But you know, I have this joke I do, and I do it almost every time I perform, where I say that having kids is a lot like making pancakes. First one's kind of fucked up. Probably should have thrown it away. And after hearing what I just told you before this, you can imagine that my daughter Spencer is really upset about this joke. Yeah, she does not think it's funny at all, you guys. She actually really hasn't spoken much to me in 2 years, and disinvited me from her wedding. And I'm heartbroken, but most of all, I'm heartbroken because I think she actually believes that I didn't want her. And what I haven't had the heart to tell her is that I am the only one who did want her, right? And, you know, she was a choice. I wanted her. She made me a mom. She made me a person capable of unconditional love, caring for another person. And it was a choice, and it was the best decision I've ever made, even though it was a hard one. So this story goes out to her. I love you, Spencer, my precious first pancake. Thank you guys